In this video, I want to show you all promising underdogs, the best inexpensive favorites, and the best bets to consider for this weekend. I'll also provide my final probability for each fighter's victory, along with their stat differentials. If you find this informative, helpful, or entertaining, please like and subscribe. It really helps keep me motivated to create these videos for you all. I've also added my Patreon information in the description if you want to support me there. There's a $10 a month contribution tier and a $20 a month premium tier. The premium tier gives you early access to all of the analysis and results from my videos, along with the additional data analysis and stats. This includes my prediction model results, fighter history, stat overviews, promising underdogs, best inexpensive favorites, prop bets to consider, and deep dives into each fighter's record and historical fights. So you'll get to see their strengths, their weaknesses, their consistency across different stats, and their stat comparisons versus all of their historical opponents' averages. All of this combined will help you with your picks and bets. There's a $20 a month tier, which is around $5 per event, and you can also purchase each of these separately, but the membership is cheaper and easier. Plus, you're directly helping with the improvement and expansion of the content for this channel. Running this data, analysis, and prediction models takes hours every day and week, so I'd greatly appreciate any support that you can show. And thank you to everyone who has shown me support recently. Also, if you like detailed breakdowns and predictions, I do those weekly for full cards as well, including prelim fights, so feel free to check those out on my channel. Let's go ahead and jump right in. First, let's take a look at promising underdogs. The fighters' names are on the leftmost column, followed by their probability of victory that I presented in the prediction video from earlier this week. These probabilities are not only based on several data science prediction models that are trained for accuracy, but also on qualitative information such as the fighter's momentum, their recent performances, their career's trajectory, psychological factors, their training camps, their weight cuts, and any other available information out there. I've also provided the stat advantages for each fighter compared to their opponent, excluding differentials where one of the fighters has a 0 in their stats in order to avoid misleading information. Alright, I've kept you guys waiting long enough. Let's go ahead and get started. The first promising underdog that I want to highlight in this video is Amanda Lemos. Amanda Lemos has a height advantage of an inch, she has a reach advantage of an inch, she lands 1.13 more strikes per minute, she has a 16% higher striking accuracy, and has a 27% higher takedown accuracy. Now, I gave Amanda Lemos a 46.1% probability of victory, and I think she's a great underdog to feature because she's won 14 fights, she's finished 79% of them, she's won 8 of her 11 UFC fights, recently winning 3 out of her last 5, and she's coming off of a win. So on paper, she does have the chances of getting this one done. And let's talk about reasons aside from stats alone as to why she can pull off an upset and why she might be a valuable bet for you to consider. She has exceptional striking skills, she has that knockout power, and the versatility that can give her an edge over Virna Jandiroba in this upcoming fight. While Jandiroba's grappling skills does pose a threat and will throughout the entire fight, Lemos' recent high-level experience and her improved takedown defense make her pretty well equipped to neutralize some of this challenge. Now, Lemos' ability to control that distance, combined with her mental toughness and her strategic approach, will likely allow her to dictate the pace of this fight and kind of keep it standing where she does really well. With those powerful strikes and that constant knockout threat, I think that Lemos may have the tools to outmaneuver Jandiroba and potentially secure a decisive victory. I'm still going for Jandiroba. Again, I'm giving Lemos a 46% probability, but that's actually not that far off from her being able to get it done. So if you also think that Amanda Lemos has a decent chance of getting it done and you want to sprinkle a little bit of value in your betting for this weekend, consider taking Amanda Lemos. And if you want to increase the value a little bit more, take Amanda Lemos via decision. I don't necessarily think she can pull off the knockout. Maybe she'll get a knockdown, something along those lines. Maybe Jandiroba controls the whole fight with grappling, who knows. But point is, if you want some value, if you also think Lemos does have some capability, and you think that this one's more even than expected, consider taking Amanda Lemos via decision. The next promising underdog and potentially valuable bet that I'm going to give you guys for this card is Seong-Woo Choi. Seong-Woo Choi is 1 year younger than his opponent. He has a 1% higher striking defense, and he has a 10% higher takedown accuracy. Now, I gave him a 42.7% probability of victory with all things considered, and I think is a pretty decent underdog to feature as potentially being able to pull off this upset because he's won 11 fights, he's finished 57% of them, which means he's controlled the other 43%. He's won 4 of his 9 UFC fights. Recently, he has been kind of on a slump. He's won only 2 out of his last 5 fights, but he is coming off of a win. so he's carrying some momentum coming into this fight. But let's talk about reasons aside from the stats on paper alone as to why he can pull off this upset. He does have superior striking skills, which he's really perfected through his extensive Muay Thai background and some of his championship experience, and I think that gives him a significant edge over Steve Garcia in that realm. His slight reach advantage combined with his precise and powerful strikes will probably allow him to control that distance and pick Garcia apart while avoiding any kind of crazy damage. After doing all my research and looking at their recent fights for both of these fighters, I think that Choi will have a little bit better conditioning and potentially capitalize on Garcia's fatigue as the fight progresses. Now additionally, Choi's momentum from his recent win and his general ability to adapt his game plan through fights does make him well positioned to be able to exploit Garcia's tendency to absorb those strikes. Now ultimately, I think that if Choi is able to pull off an upset here, he's going to get that victory either through a decision or maybe a late stoppage. Keep in mind, if you saw my video from earlier this week, I am still leaning towards Garcia with a 57% probability of victory, but with Choi having a 43% probability of victory and having the advantages he has, it's not going to be shocking if he pulls off this upset, and I think there's some value in him. So, if you are going for Choi, consider this a little bit of a confirmation. If you are going to go for him, I think that there's value in him via KO/TKO. I also think there's value with Garcia via KO/TKO. Remember, I'm going to review bets at the end of this video, but that's a little bit of an idea as to where the value is for this fight. And that's the whole point of this video, right? To show the value in these cards and who has the ability to pull off upsets either stylistically, strategically, or statistically, or a combination of all three. Alright, so we're going to keep this going. The next promising underdog and potential value bet that I want to highlight for you guys is none other than Bruno Silva. Now, Bruno Silva has a 8% higher striking defense, and I ended up giving him a 43.4% probability of victory, and I think is a good underdog to feature because he's won 13 fights, he's finished about 70% of them, he's won half of his UFC fights, that's 3 out of 6. Recently, he's won 3 out of his last 5 fights, but he is coming off of a 3-fight win streak, so he's carrying a good amount of momentum with him. The last time he lost was in October of 2020, but let's talk about reasons aside from stats alone as to why I gave him a 43% probability of victory, which puts him at a really good spot as a value bet. I think that he's set to potentially pull off an upset due to his better striking power and overall technique, which could lead to a knockout if he keeps the fight standing and if Cody Durden gets a little bit sloppy. Now, Silva's extensive experience against some of those top-tier opponents has really perfected his adaptability as a fighter and some of that resilience that we see in a fighter, which gives him kind of a strategic edge in this fight. Now, additionally, his mental toughness and his overall recent improvements in his mindset will probably enhance his overall ability to perform under some pressure. Now, while Durden's wrestling is a threat and again will be a threat the entire fight, Silva's knockout potential and his experience does make him pretty interesting as a pick in this fight. If you're leaning towards Bruno Silva, I would say take him via submission, and if you're leaning towards Cody Durden, then take him via decision. Now, I am still going towards Cody Durden. I'm giving him a 57% probability of victory, but Bruno Silva being at that 43% does make him a valuable bet to at least consider, and if you were already leaning towards him, then you can consider this as a bit of a confirmation in your value pick. Alright, let's keep it going. We're having some fun here. The next promising underdog that I want to highlight for you all is Trey Ogden. Trey Ogden has a reach advantage of 3 inches in this fight. He lands 0.45 more strikes per minute, and he has a 5% higher striking accuracy. Also, he absorbs 1.14 less strikes per minute. He has a 13% higher striking defense, and he has a way better takedown defense as well, at least on paper, right? Now, all things considered, I gave Trey Ogden a 43.2% probability of victory in my prediction video from earlier this week. So Trey Ogden's also positioned as a good underdog to pick for this card. He's won 17 fights, he's finished 65% of them. He's won 2 of his 5 UFC fights, but that also gives him some valuable experience, and he is coming off of a win into this fight. So now let's talk about reasons aside from stats alone as to why Ogden has a chance of pulling off this upset. He could beat Loic due to his overall well-rounded skill set as a fighter. He has pretty good takedown defense, and he's strategically prepared for this fight as well. He's going to be able to exploit Radzhabov's grappling weaknesses and use some effective counter-striking that could neutralize Radzhabov's aggressive pressure and his knockout power. Now, while Radzhabov is a challenging striker and he has great momentum, Ogden's experience, his mental toughness, and his adaptability could give him the edge needed to secure this victory. If you are going for Trey Ogden, there is even more value if you take him via decision. And I think that's where he has the potential to excel. He could have enough to control the fight overall, take it to the judges, and just get that decision victory and pull off this upset. Full disclosure, from the prediction video earlier this week, I did pick Loic at a 57% probability, so Ogden's not a pick of mine. But again, in this section of this video, I'm just highlighting the fighters that have value and have potential to pull off upsets based on the matchups, based on the research I've done, based on the statistical analysis, fight film studying, all of that. Now this next one's pretty interesting. The next promising underdog that I want to highlight for you guys is Luana Carolina. Now she has a reach advantage of 2 inches. She lands about 1 more strike per minute. She has a 12% higher striking accuracy. She absorbs a little bit less strikes per minute. She has a 15% higher takedown accuracy and has a 10% higher takedown defense. And here's the interesting part. I'm actually picking Luana Carolina as one of my picks. I'm giving her a 50.9% probability of victory, so that's about a 51% probability of victory, even though she's the underdog. And I think she is a great underdog to feature. She's a pick of mine. She's won 10 fights. She's finished 40% of them, which means she's controlled 60% of them. She's won 5 of her 8 UFC fights, recently winning 3 out of her last 5 fights, and she's coming off of a 2-fight win streak. Here's the thing about her. She's able to combine that Muay Thai striking and that BJJ, and I think that gives her a great arsenal, which will allow her to outmaneuver Lucy. I think her technical striking skills and her great footwork will allow her to control the distance in the fight. I think it's going to frustrate Pudilova a little bit because she has that aggressive style with her striking, and I think she's going to land those precise shots on her. She has a good amount of momentum coming into this fight, and she has good experience with some of those taller opponents as well, which could give her the confidence needed in this fight. Ultimately, I think she's able to do a great job of adapting in the middle of fights. She's able to maintain composure under pressure, and she can exploit her opponent's weaknesses. And I think that considering all things from statistics to research to fight film, everything, I think she's a smart pick. And I think she will secure a victory. She's a pick of mine. I'm going with her. Even though it's 51%, I still think that she is someone who is of value on this card. I'm going to take Luana Carolina via decision. Now there's one more promising underdog that I wanted to feature in this section of the video before I dive into those best inexpensive favorites and my bets and prop bets that I want to share with you guys that I think are worth considering. And that next promising underdog is going to be Thomas Peterson. Thomas Peterson is 6 years younger in this matchup. He lands 0.61 more strikes per minute. He has a 31% higher striking accuracy. He absorbs 0.42 less strikes per minute. He lands 1.95 more takedowns on average, and he has a 26% higher takedown accuracy as well. Now, all things considered, I gave Thomas Peterson a 44.2% probability of victory in my prediction video from earlier this week. He's won 8 fights. He's finished all of them. He didn't win that one UFC fight that he had, but he did recently win 3 out of his last 5 fights. And it's important to note that Peterson does have wrestling skills that need to be kept in mind. He has knockout power as well, and he has a pretty good takedown defense, which could let him control the fight's pace and the location. I think his southpaw stance and his recent momentum also add an element of unpredictability in this fight that could just disrupt Usman's game plan. I'm still going for Usman, but with a 44% all-in probability of victory, Peterson is not a bad value pick to consider. Now, while Usman is known for his athleticism and his relentless style, I think that Peterson could have an ability to neutralize some of these strengths, at least kind of water them down a little bit, and capitalize on some of those openings with his powerful strikes, and I don't think he's going to be a very easy opponent for Usman. Overall, I think Peterson does have some strategic advantages in this fight. He has some dual threat capabilities, and that could just give him an upper hand. So, I'm still going for Usman, but if you think that Peterson does have value and you think that it's worth rolling the dice, then consider this a confirmation and take Thomas Peterson via decision. Alright, now we're going to switch gears, and now I'm going to talk about the promising favorites for this card, which I've chosen through 3 main criteria. First, they have a high statistical weighted confidence either through my prediction models or through fighter stat evaluation or some combination of both. Second, their opponent does not have a high probability of victory, so you're not going to notice any overlap between the underdogs I just showed you earlier and these fighters. And the third thing is that their odds aren't too expensive. If a fighter has like negative 600 or negative 700 odds, they're obviously just too expensive to pick, but you could always parlay them if you want. In this video, I'm going to focus more on finding you guys some value rather than just stating some obvious picks and pointing out those negative 600 type fighters. So I consider these three things for you guys. I do all the work for you guys, and then I show you the valuable picks that fit that criteria. And if you want to know how I predict each fight plays out and the results, please check out my prediction breakdown from earlier this week where I review stats, each fighter's fight history, the results of my 7 data science prediction models, my final picks, and the method of victory. Now for this portion of the video, for these favorites, I'm only going to review their stat differentials that they have against their opponent. But again, if you want those in-depth breakdowns, please refer to that video from earlier this week. It will help you out. Alright, I'm not trying to bore you guys to death, so let's go ahead and jump right in. The first inexpensive and confident favorite that I want to highlight for you guys is Jun-Young Park. Jun-Young Park is 3 years younger. He lands 1.15 more strikes per minute. He has a 7% higher striking accuracy. He lands 1.05 more takedowns on average, and he has a 24% higher takedown accuracy. All things considered, I'm giving him a 62.4% probability of victory, and I think he's a great favorite to pick. The next inexpensive and confident favorite that I want to highlight for you guys is Bill Algeo. Bill has a height advantage of 2 inches, he has a reach advantage of 3 inches, he lands 1.42 more strikes per minute, he absorbs 0.4 less strikes per minute, he lands 0.57 more takedowns on average, he has a 26% higher takedown accuracy, and a 7% higher takedown defense. All things considered, I'm giving Bill a 58.9% probability of victory, and I think he's also a great favorite to feature. Alright, we have 2 more, and then we're going to get into those bets. So the next inexpensive and confident favorite that I want to highlight for you guys is Cody Gibson. Cody Gibson has a height advantage of 4 inches. He's a year younger. He has a reach advantage of 5 inches. He lands 0.61 more strikes per minute. He has a 2% higher striking accuracy. He absorbs 0.56 less strikes per minute. He has a 3% higher striking defense, and he has a 9% higher takedown defense. All things considered, I gave Cody Gibson a 63.6% probability of victory, and he's another solid fighter to feature in this section. And for the last inexpensive and confident favorite that I would like to highlight for you guys, it's none other than Miranda Maverick. Miranda Maverick is 5 years younger than her opponent. She lands 1.6 more strikes per minute. She absorbs 0.26 less strikes per minute. She lands 0.19 more takedowns on average, and she has a 20% higher takedown accuracy. All things considered, I gave Miranda Maverick about a 64% probability of victory, and I think she's another great favorite to feature that's not too expensive and pretty well positioned to give you guys some value. Now let's review the bets that I think have value for this card, and they have a good statistical and stylistic possibility of occurring. Please disregard prop bets where you're picking the other fighter to win, so just disregard those. I'm going to start from the top of the card and work my way down. For Amanda Lemos versus Virna Jandiroba, I would consider going over 1.5, and if you want to roll the dice a little bit, go over 2.5 or the fight going the distance. For Brad Tavares versus Jun-Young Park, I would consider over 1.5, over 2.5, or going the distance. You could go ahead and pick whichever one you're comfortable with. For Steve Garcia versus Seong-Woo Choi, consider taking Steve Garcia via KO/TKO if you're leaning towards him. Otherwise, you could also consider taking the under 2.5 or under 1.5 for that fight. For Kurt Holobaugh versus Kenan Khrushchevsky, go ahead and consider taking that under 2.5. For Cody Durden versus Bruno Silva, consider taking Durden via decision if you're leaning towards him. Also, you could consider taking that over 1.5, over 2.5, or the fight going the distance, depending on how risk averse you want to be. For Brian Keller versus Cody Gibson, go ahead and consider that over 1.5, over 2.5, or that distance, again, depending on how risk averse you want to be and how much reward you're willing to accept for the price that you're paying. For Miranda Maverick versus Dione Barbosa, again, consider that over 1.5, over 2.5, and the fight going the distance. We know how most of those women's MMA fights go. For Luana Carolina versus Lucy Pudilova, once again, consider that over 1.5, over 2.5, and the fight going the distance. You could also randomize some of the picks that I made in my prediction video earlier, throw them in a parlay, maybe 3 of them, and see how it works out. I average 67 to 70% accuracy, so I found that kind of randomizing some parlays does me a good favor at the end of the night. I know there's not a lot of exciting bets for this card. I think this card's going to have a lot of fights that are going to go the distance and go to those judges, and maybe we're going to see some robberies, who knows, hopefully we don't. But at the end of the day, these are the bets that make the most sense stylistically and statistically, and based on all my research that I could do and all of the previous fights that I could watch for these fighters, I think that these have the best logical chance of occurring. And with that said, that wraps up this video. I really appreciate you all for watching and being so supportive as always. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and check out that Patreon if you want to support me through there as well. There's a $10 a month contribution tier and a $20 a month premium tier, which includes early results, picks, and bets, and also includes premium data, analysis, and stats as well. Your support helps keep me encouraged and motivated to continue running all of this data and analysis for you guys and providing you guys all these insights. So thank you once again, and as always, see you guys in the next one.